with Karina Quilantan-Garza, a really amazing Buncee ambassador and MIE expert that's based in the US, who, like I mentioned, does amazing work with her students on both Buncee as well as Microsoft, really not just Teams, Office, like everything Microsoft related. So I'm really excited for her to be able to showcase the amazing innovative ideas that she's been able to do. And so I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And so I'd love to welcome Karina over. And so Karina, thank you so much for joining us. It's a really amazing for us to be able to have you. I know you're tuning in at 3 in the morning. It's really early on your side, but you're so full of energy. So I'm excited for our participants to be able to hear from you. And so with that, I'll pass you the floor, and I'm really excited to hear from you as well.
All right, well, thank you. Let me go ahead and begin sharing my screen. All right, let me know if you can see that.
Yes, we can definitely see it.
Okay. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and move a couple of things out of the way. I will be demonstrating a couple of things today. So if I'm moving back and forth from my screens, just know this is why I'm looking this way. Okay, all right, let's go ahead and get started then. Hello, everyone. My name is Karina Quilantan-Garza. I'm a library media specialist located in Texas in the United States. I'm super happy to be here today and to join you all in learning how to collaborate creatively using Buncy and Microsoft Teams. So thank you so much for having me here this morning / this afternoon or whatever time zone you're tuning in from. Just a little bit about me, if you haven't already, I guess, seen my enthusiasm on social media, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, basically just about any social media program by following me at Q the Librarian, which is right here. My handle is right here. Just to go based on what Ida had mentioned, I am a Microsoft Innovative Educator Trainer, Microsoft Innovative Educator Expert, and I've been a Buncy leader / ambassador for a few years now, and I just love using Buncy with Microsoft tools. I use it, if not weekly, definitely daily, with my students, with my staff, just about, anybody that I can talk to about it is always fun for me. So I'm really happy that you guys are here to join me today in learning how to use these platforms. Now, what I do want to do before we go over anything today is to kind of touch base on the different ways that we use it at my school. Now, depending on what you want your students to master or what you feel might really, I guess, allow the students to express themselves creatively, I think Buncy is a really great way to use all those different elements and all those features to really get their voice out there. So for example, some of the things that we worked on when the pandemic hit and into this school year was all about inspiration. We were talking about what inspires us, what motivates us. So for example, for this new year, we shared some inspirational quotes. I asked the students, look for an inspirational quote that really speaks to you, and I want you to demonstrate that visually. And not only were we kind of doing something that involved a creative outlet, but really gave the students a way to learn all the different features that Buncy has. So some really great examples of this were creating a visual representation of a quote and adding it to a Buncy board. However, today I'm going to show you how you can do that using Teams tools. One of the things that we love to do is something that inspires us. So for example, one of my drama teachers that teaches theater arts, her assignment for this year was an inspiration board, vision board, create an inspiration board that includes images, animations, text, and video. And the students just really took off with it. They were mentioning family. They made sure to include things that that connected with school. even adding their own quotes, even even embedding YouTube videos directly from Buncee about things that interested them and uploading their own photos, things that were important to them. So this was a really fun way to connect with our students and kind of reach them from home since they're learning remotely. Setting goals has been very important to us as well, especially reflecting on the things past and present. For example, in 2020, things that they learned based on their experiences and everything that's happening right now compared to what they hope to achieve in 2021. So it was really nice to see that reflective thought coming from the students, as well as, you know, their creativity reflecting in these projects. And the great thing about Buncee is that it makes it so easy to create something visually that takes really minimal time, and you know, and the kids just kind of take off with it. So what we're going to cover today, and be patient with me because it is 3 a.m. here, and if I yawn in the middle, it's not because I'm bored. It might just be because I'm tired. So Buncee and Teams for today, I really want us to focus on how we can use Buncee for learning, specifically with some of the Teams integrations, such as using Teams notebooks and with Buncee, and how we can use Buncee for assignments through Teams, as well as Buncee for communication, such as using Buncee meetings, Buncee tabs, and Buncee messages. Of course, this is not just limited to the things that you can do with Buncee and Teams, but this has been a really great way for me to, at least in my case, to build that foundation for not just my students, but also my teachers who are looking for new ways to use Buncee using the communication tools that we already use on campus. So I'm really excited that we are focusing specifically on Microsoft and Buncee because of its integration capabilities. It's really, really great. So with that being said, I would love to go ahead and kick off a demonstration on how to get the most out of Buncee and your Teams integration. Now, first things first, and I have a checklist because checklists are very important. We need to look at our Teams classes today. So if you're following along today, by all means, feel free to grab your Microsoft Teams tools. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna go ahead and minimize that. Right now, this is what I'm seeing. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you a little something. I'm gonna go to my Teams channels over here off to the side. Oh, oops, my bad. Okay, move that there. Okay, so normally, this is what we see whenever we log on to Teams. We'll have our classes and our different departments here listed. However, whenever we're integrating Buncee, it's very important that you do a tech check first. So if you haven't already, make sure to click on the apps icon down here at the bottom. And when you click on that, you'll have an option to search all apps through the Microsoft, I wouldn't say store, but download page. If you haven't already, because you will need it today if you want to follow along with the demonstration, is if you do a search for Buncee, it'll show up here and it'll give you the option. Mine says open because I have it installed, but you will have an option to install it. So if you don't have it installed already, go ahead and click the button that says install. And once you have it installed, you are good to go. It may ask you to log in. So I would recommend that you log in either with your organization's login information or your personal information, depending on what subscription you have for Buncee. Okay, so once you have that installed, I think it's very important that we go over different ways that you can use Buncee within Microsoft Teams. So I'm a librarian, as I mentioned earlier during the introduction, but I was an English language arts / social studies teacher when I was in the classroom. So as a librarian, I never really stopped teaching. I just teach in a different way. So one of the things that I really like to incorporate was the use of Onenote Notebooks within Teams, and using Buncy to really kind of bring that information together. So what I'm using for today is just a demo class. This isn't one of my real classes to protect student privacy. However, when you log into Teams or your classroom, you're going to notice that this is, of course, your dashboard. You have the typical posts, files, and then you have a section for class notebook. This feature is very important because I think it's a great way for you to really bring in those projects by the students and kind of have them stored somewhere centrally where you can allow the students to explore and communicate with each other regarding their assignments, whether it's reflecting on a lesson of the day or communicating with their peers. It's just a great way to consolidate all that information. So for example, you'll have different sections within your class notebook, and the one that we're going to focus on today is the collaboration space. Now, the collaboration space specifically within OneNote and in Teams is a space where everyone in your class, all of your students, including the teachers, can share, organize, and collaborate. So it's a great place to kind of update and communicate in real time with students regarding their progress or their achievements, and just building that welcoming class culture. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is click on these little notebook icons right here. And I'm going to focus specifically on the collaboration space because I really use Buncee to communicate collaboratively, hence the name of the session, with my students. I really like for them to reflect on each other's work and using that time to communicate with each other because, as you know, right now, a lot of us are working and learning from home. So any way to build, I guess, that level of communication with the students is very important to me as a teacher and as well as my students. Now, when you build a class notebook, you'll have different options for collaboration spaces, your content library, and then you'll have a list of notebooks that deal with each student specifically. For this demonstration, I'm focusing solely on collaboration space, so I'm going to click on that. Now, this is a collaborative notebook that I can create. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and add a section here, and I'm going to go ahead and call it Buncy Teams. Collab. Okay. Now this is just, oh, whoops, I put it in the wrong place. Sorry. I'm gonna delete that. Oh, I already made it. Sorry, it's 3 on here. Okay, so under collaboration space, which I completely forgot, I already made a Buncy Teams folder. Okay, that's odd. A Buncy Teams, notebook, where all my assignments or all my projects for the day or the week are going to be stored. Now, the reason that I'm putting it under the collaboration space is because I want to monitor what my students are thinking specifically in that day and time, right? This is more so like a whole class discussion, something that we can all do together. Now, as a teacher, what I really like to do is begin every day with an icebreaker. I'm going to go ahead and label the first one Icebreaker. And within Icebreaker, you'll notice that it takes you to a blank page. However, if I were to copy and paste a link directly from Buncee, I like to get and create my icebreakers using Buncee templates, especially the Ideas Lab under Buncee's homepage is a really great way to grab ideas and different templates and activities. You don't even necessarily have to start from zero or scratch. It's all there for you. So one of the ones that I really love is gauging my students' moods at the beginning of a lesson. So I love the mood meter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and share this with the code, specifically the link. Move that off to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and put paste. Oh no, what is going on? Hold on just a second. There we go. All right, there we go. So we have the mood meter automatically embedded into the OneNote notebook which I think is great because it's not something that I can do easily with other platforms out there. My district specifically is a Google and Microsoft district. And when it comes to Buncee, I prefer the Microsoft integrations only because it makes it so easy to display the work right there for everybody to see. And it's great because I can easily move it around or I can resize it. And the great thing is the kids can get a symbol or an emoji and mark their place in the on the board, on the mood meter, I should say. I'm sorry, my computer is acting very finicky right now, and I swear this wasn't doing this earlier. But one of the things that we really like to do is add our little symbols or text about where we're feeling that day. So I could easily say, or I can number these as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and ask the students, all right, off to the side, let me know how you're feeling today. I'm feeling like a 5. And that lets me know before we start the lesson, this is a great way for me to kind of see where the kids are at, or maybe, you know, kind of warn me at the end of the class, you know, maybe I should talk to the student individually if I know that they're not doing okay. Now, after I do this little icebreaker, I create a section or a page for our lesson of the day. And I can easily grab, just like I did with my icebreaker, I can go to the Buncees that I've created for my students. And instead of assigning them through Buncee, which I do love that option. However, I want to see how they're doing, you know, right away. Maybe I don't want them to necessarily have to go through the whole process of an assignment, but just like a simple checkup, especially when it's all about reflections. So for example, we were focusing on New Year read-olutions, such as like New Year read-olutions, their reading resolutions, where the students create a Buncee with their read-olutions. So they think about one reading goal that they really want to accomplish, and this is 2020, it should have said 2021. Some examples of read-olutions are, you know, reading different genres, reading more books, setting aside time to read daily or weekly, and then they share their Buncee on our vision board. And then, of course, I have an example for my students that they can refer to. So this is a great way for instructions or different lessons that I know I don't want them to lose can all be stored in one place. So I'm going to go ahead and share this, and I'm going to make sure that it's copyable so that way my students can easily make a copy of it. All right, so our lesson for today has to deal with read-olutions. Oh yeah, I forgot my mouse didn't work. Okay, there we go. All right, so directly from here, my students can see, all right, this is the lesson for today. These are the instructions, and now I have an example of what my students can use to model their read-olution after. Now, because I tell them, you know, this is a collaborative project, one of the things that we have done is add all of our Buncees to a class notebook page. Now, you can do that with individual Buncees, or the cool thing that you can do, which I love, by the way, is you can collect your Buncees on a Buncee board. And if you copy that link to your board and you paste it in the page, the board gets embedded as well. So that's a really great way for you to have a collection of student work readily available to you, and also where the kids can go and see everything that their class has accomplished. I'm not sure what the procedures are for you all when it comes to communicating with parents, but this has been a really great way to just share our screen and say, during Meet the Teacher or, open house, we can say this is something that we share a screen, this is something that our students and class have worked on. This is a collection if you would like to look at it. And it's just great to have it all in one place, because I know my students and they'll lose a piece of paper, but I know when it's digitally it's organized, it's a good place to have it. So with that being said, I think it's very important that at the end of a great lesson is to reflect on the things that the students learn, whether it's at the beginning of the week, something that they want to reflect on, improving on, or on a Friday before school lets out, what's something that you've learned. I try to make lessons in the library very thematic, especially with other content areas. For example, social studies is one of the bigger subjects that love to collaborate with me. So everything at the moment is kind of all social studies related. But when it comes to just library specific things, I do like to go with the theme. And in this case, it's been all about setting personal goals and reflecting on the things that we've been learning throughout the year, especially since we're not together. It's really hard to see them, physically, and see how they're doing. So I think the great thing about Buncee is that it really gives them that way to express themselves in a safe space with their peers, and not just for an assignment, but to do something with a creative outlet that they can really, really use to kind of speak to that level of creation and their inner artist. So one of the things that I really love to do is a wrap up at the end of the day or at the end of the class period. So I'm going to add a specific page for here for end of the day reflection. And one of our favorite reflections is this specific template that I found on the Ideas Lab, end of day activities. And it's a little notebook where students jot down 5 things that they've learned today. How did they feel about today? Where they can add an emoji. What they're excited about the next day or the following week, and they can get creative by using text, audio, or recording a video, and things that they can improve, and any questions that they may have for me or their teachers that we can answer the next day. Now, when I assign them this Buncee, they can edit, add their responses, and share it to our class notebook by doing it the same way. So if I, for example, am a student and I really want to reflect on, what am I excited about tomorrow? Tomorrow's reading day, so I'm going to search for book. I'm going to go ahead and answer World Read Aloud today. Oh, World Read Aloud Day. I'm really excited about it in February. I'm going to add a couple of text here, some text. I am excited about World Read Aloud Day. I love to read. And I can always add audio or video by clicking the items options and selecting from all the different things that are included on the Buncee palette. So if I want to show my enthusiasm, I'm going to go ahead and add an emoji as well. That's one of my favorites. There we go. All right, so I'm excited and I'm ready to share this with my class. Make sure to title it. And I'm going to make this commentable so that way whenever my peers access my Buncee, they can add a comment as part of our student feedback requirements, right? So I'm going to go ahead and share this as well and add it to my reflections notebook. My page, my notebook page. There we go. And you can see that my information has been added there. I love that. I love that there's no lag time, like let me wait until it updates. We wait a couple of minutes. It's just an instantaneous thing and I love it. I love it so much. I wish this or these capabilities were around when I was a kid, all the things that I would have accomplished, let me tell you. Okay, so one of the great things about these reflections or just building a Buncee notebook within teams is, I want to say for the most part, is the ability to consolidate all the information and seeing how the students can see their progress throughout the year and how much their thinking has transformed throughout the school year, and reflecting on their growth, I think is very, very, very important. Now, the moment of truth. I've focused a lot on how to use Buncee collaboratively as a collaboration space and what you can kind of do with it. And of course, it's not limited to just this. But at the end of the day, such as with any teacher, I would like to think in education, we like to assign homework. Now, I don't necessarily think that there's just one way to do this, but there are a few ways to do this. One of the simpler ways, though, I would recommend is you have an option directly from Buncee to create an assignment on Microsoft Teams. So for example, my campus is primarily Spanish speaking. We have a lot of students who speak Spanish as their first language. So we like to make sure that they understand the content in their native language before we introduce it to them in English. So for example, vocabulary review is very important at our campus. So to create an assignment is very easy. Up here at the top, while I'm looking in preview mode, if I click on share, there is an option to select Teams under social. So if I click on that, I will easily be able to select Teams directly from the social button. It'll pop up a new window. And I can either share to my channel as an announcement, or I can create an assignment directly from here. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is show you how to build an assignment. Let's say that you wanna assign homework, and I can choose a class. So I'm gonna go ahead and click my class, and I'm gonna go ahead and enter the title, Vocabulary Review Homework, and I'll enter my instructions. Please make a copy of this Buncee vocabulary Buncee and complete by the due date. Smiley face. You can assign points. I'm going to say this is worth 100 points, and I'm going to go ahead and set the due date for tomorrow at 11:59 p.m. And you'll notice that my Buncee is automatically linked to this assignment because remember, I'm sharing directly from Buncee. So that is such a great feature. It's not like I'm jumping from Teams to Buncee to get the link, to paste it. It's all directly there for you. So seamless, it's wonderful. And then from here, I can go ahead and assign it. And my assignment has been created, and I can go ahead and close that. And now on my end, you'll notice, you'll notice there's a little notification, this little bubble right here. And if I click on that, it also shows on our post stream that an announcement has been made that I've assigned vocabulary review homework. And we can easily just view the assignment from here. And I can see the status of my students not turned in, any feedback, and I can manually enter the grade, which is really, really great. So I think that's a really great way to just, a simple way to assign a grade assignment that you've created on Buncee that you really want to share with the students. And then of course, another way is creating directly from Teams where you could create an assignment. The only difference is that you will have to add the resources here and you will have to add it as a link, which is why I say there's multiple steps when it goes as far as creating an assignment goes, but that's why I prefer creating assignments directly from Buncee, because I kind of skip and override that entire process, which I think is really, really great. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the assignments portion, how we can use Buncee and Teams for student work, specifically how to organize those materials and different ways that you can go about a Buncee lesson if you choose to. But one of the major things that I really like to consider when I'm teaching my students is using Buncee for communication, specifically Buncee meetings. So as I go back and reflect on, okay, in our class notebook, I noticed that one of my students mentioned in our collaboration space under Icebreakers that he was feeling like a 2, or she was feeling like a 2. And that makes me a little worried. I want to make sure that anyone that comes into my class is prepared to learn, feels safe, feels comfortable, feels confident enough. I know that our students at the moment are going through a lot. You know, we gave them a pandemic and they have been going through this entire situation with grace and positivity, which I feel that we have a lot to learn from. And sometimes when students aren't feeling confident in their learning or they're feeling bad, I want to make sure that as a teacher, I'm there for them to confide in if they feel they need to. So one of the great things that I like to do, and not just with my students, but as well as my staff, after a lesson or after a meeting or after a training when I'm training my teachers, is going back to Buncee to reflect on their learning and where they are as far as in their abilities, how they feel about their ability to master a certain skill. So whether it's following up with a teacher about something that they may have missed in a session, or maybe a student who needs that extra support, remedial practice, or just a simple check-in, I can easily on my Buncee dashboard, when I log in, it looks something like this. Up at the top, there's on the left-hand corner, there's an option for creating and sharing a meeting on Microsoft Teams. I love this option because it's not like I have to be on Teams and opening another program. Directly from here, I could say, you know what, so-and-so had trouble with their vocabulary review. Let me go ahead and set up a meeting so we can work on that. Now, the first thing that you have to do, of course, is generate. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. And if you're signing in for the first time, you'll probably have to put in your username and password, the typical permissions. And from here, you could create a meeting link. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a wellness check-in for one of my students. And I can set it at on a specific date, maybe during my conference period. Okay, maybe not at 4 a.m. because my students won't show up at that time. Or maybe they will, I have no idea. And I'm going to go ahead and say at 2:00 p.m. for about an hour. That sounds about right. And create. So my meeting has been created. I can copy this information and email it to my students, or I can share with my students by selecting different sections that have been linked to, get this, your Google Classroom classes as well, which I thought was amazing because we don't just use Microsoft, we also use Google. So this is a great extra step that I can take and say, you know what, I need to share it with my students and share. Awesome, which is great. And then of course I can always invite them by email and say, you know what, I have a student that I really need to speak to about their homework, and I can share this meeting with them by entering their email. Or maybe it's a club meeting. Maybe there's a group of students that you really need to meet for tutoring and you decide to use Buncee tools for that, or entering teacher emails, collaborating on a lesson or creating a lesson within Buncee that you all can work on collaboratively. Send an email to each person and just share it. And my meeting has been shared. And now I'll get an email saying, you have a Teams meeting scheduled, make sure to join. So that's a really great integration because it prevents me having to open different platforms and jumping and hopping around from place to place when it's all here. Now, I get asked a lot, but why Buncee? Why not PowerPoint? Why not Google Slides? And the answer is always the same, because it's super cute. Well, no, but yes, that is 100% true. But what I say is, for me, and this is just my thinking, for my students, in the past, when I have assigned them a PowerPoint or a Google Slide, it all seemed very professional. It all seemed like a product for adults. And with Buncee, it's all very student friendly. There are so many different features that just announce that it's for kids. And it's a great place to get images that are copyright free, as well as exploring video content that's safe without all the dangerous ads. And it's just a one-stop shop, literally, for creation. And I love that this one specific place from my Buncee dashboard, I can do so many things. Create an assignment, create a meeting, share socially with my students. It's great, I think. Now, of course, there's a lot of things that I like to share with my staff. I like to share announcements. I like to share information about meetings. So I'm going to show you how that looks like. And I'm just going to switch it to something that I do for my staff, if you don't mind me switching. All right. One of the things that I like to host in my library channel is called Buncee Bits Tuesday. And every Tuesday we cover a new, not a new feature, but a different feature of Buncee that I think that they could really get the most out of. We did purchase this for our campus, so I wanted to make sure that they were implementing this with fidelity and not just another platform that we bought and then never used. So I wanted to make sure that on Tuesdays, we meet on the Microsoft Teams channel, and I use this option right here. I create and share a meeting directly from here, and I link the Buncee with the announcement saying, hey, we have a Tuesday session, make sure to make it. So what I do in my library, my Teams virtual library, is I add something called tabs, where I copy and paste the Buncee for that week or that day. And what it is a collection of Buncees that I feel that they could use to really, or as a reference of information that they can access at any time. So for example, one of the things that I love using is the reader's leaderboard. And in this case, it displays the students who have read up to 1 million words. Another thing that I love to do is add the library's virtual orientation slides. So let's say one day, the students forget a certain procedure and I'm not there or available virtually. The teachers have quick access to any of the Buncees that I've shared with them under the Teams tabs in my library's virtual space. Now, you can definitely do this with your students. As a matter of fact, it's a really great way for you to pin announcements that you feel are very important for your students to have. So for example, I'm going to go back to my Teams, my class specifically, and right next to class notebook, assignments, and grades, you're going to notice that there's a little plus button. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And because you've installed the app, if you haven't already, make sure you do that. When you install the app, you will have that option to select Buncee to link your Buncees to your Microsoft Teams tab. If you haven't already, you can just do a search in here and you can install it. So what happens is when you click on that icon, it will ask you to log in. You will have to enter your domain. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. I know what we have to do, guys. Oh. Okay, here we go. Add to a team. There we go. Add to a team. And I can add directly to my classroom, set up a tab, and I don't have to post to the channel if I don't want to. It'll ask you to sign in with Microsoft. Okay. Maybe it's because it's late. Okay. Well, just so you know, there is a way to add a tab here. So let me go ahead and click on this. Ooh, there we go. You know what? We did this last time. Let me uninstall. Maybe that's, yeah, let me do that so you can see the steps. Okay. So for example, I want to add a tab. And I'm going to search for Buncee here so I can link it. I'm going to go ahead and add. This is how it'll look like. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and sign in with my school and district. Or if you have an individual account, you can sign in with your individual account. I'm going to go ahead and use my district's information and sign in with Microsoft because it's Microsoft integrated. Okay. It's not working. All right. I tried. I'm so sorry, guys. But just know that there is a way to add tabs because I did do it for my campus library, which is up here. And all you do is make sure that it's linked and you can add, all it will say is copy and paste the link to your Buncee and it'll show up here embedded as a tab. So you can see, here's the link that I used, for example, Buncee Tuesdays. And I'll make sure to get together with Ida, so maybe there's a follow-up video we can use for those steps, so I apologize. So I'm gonna go back to my classroom demos. And what I could do then, in that case, is if I was talking about Buncee tabs, or maybe there was a specific announcement that I wanted, and tabs isn't working, we can always remember, save it to our class notebook in our collaborative space. And you can always name it. For example, I'm going to go ahead and call it class rules. Oh yes, class rules are very, very important. And I'm going to go ahead and take my class rules from here and link it to my notebook. All right, there we go. Beautiful. And then, of course, I can always share it socially as well. And I can easily click on Teams. And instead of creating an assignment, I can just share it to a channel and search for my class. And I can say something about this and share it. So now when I go to my class stream, it's been posted there. And one of the things that I love to do to follow up with my students and my staff is using Buncee messages, which has been really, really fun. So whenever I'm ready to create a new assignment or a student posts something, I can easily reply or create a new conversation. And you'll notice that when you install the app, under your tools down here, there's a little button with a B for Buncee. And if you click on that, it'll load all these cute animated messages that have been Buncee created that I can use for student motivation. So for example, a student asks a question, I can respond with, how can I help? And send it to them. Or I could create an announcement directly from here. My students are asking. I get over 100 messages a day from my students asking if I'm available. And instead of saying, yes, I'm available, and typing a paragraph and asking for questions, I can just say, you know what, thumbs up, I am available right now for you to reach me if you need to. So that's a really simple way and a great way to communicate with the students. I don't know about you all, but where I'm from, I know my students love to use GIFs and animations to communicate with each other, emojis. It seems like the less words, the better, because we're so busy, right? So this has been a really great way to just keep things light and keep things fun, and a great way to give my students that feedback directly from Buncee and teams using something as simple as the app integration, which is great. Now it already is 3:50 a.m. or 5:50 p.m. And I know that I've kind of shared as much as I could with you this this beautiful morning, and thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me for this session. I really, really appreciate it. And like I mentioned before, in no way is this limited to things that you can do with Buncee and Teams. There are so many resources out there. Buncee hosts weekly sessions and events. I'm very active on social media as well, where they post a bunch of great resources and information. And by all means, if there's anything I can do to assist you in the learning process, especially using Buncee for teaching, and if you are a fellow librarian, by all means, feel free to reach out as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I guess we can leave it up to questions or Q&A, or Ito, what do you think?
Hello, hello. Well, thank you so much, Karina. It's great to be able to see your work on Buncee and Microsoft Teams. As you know, I'm a real fan of what you do, especially with OneNote. It's a really powerful resource that I can't also support you in advocating, because it really helps to make everything even more organized. So as you collect those resources, as you shared, it makes it a lot easier for everything to be in one place for your kids. So we do have a few questions for you. So we actually were able to go through a lot of them through the chat itself, but someone did in particular ask if you wouldn't mind, actually, I think the best way for me to frame this question is if you could just repeat, how would you summarize, the kind of ways that you would use or recommend teachers to use Buncee with Microsoft Teams? Like, what are your key highlights or messages for them?
So my key highlights are creating a virtual space in your classroom. Now, the great thing about if you're an educator and you have classrooms assigned to you automatically, you have the option to add Buncees as part of your tabs, which didn't work for me this morning, but it works for important announcements and highlighting student work. I think that's one of the things that I use the most, as well as creating resources directly from Teams and kind of consolidating everything on OneNote within Teams. So if I were, in the classroom again, of course I am a librarian and I have my own virtual space on Teams as well for my students. So the way that I use it is specifically for my library is I post book talks that I create on Buncee. I create announcements for different events that are happening in our virtual library that I pin as a tab. And I also create a lot of Teams meetings directly from Buncee whenever I'm sharing meetings and sessions and events for the students that they can access directly from there, especially with clubs and small groups. I love doing it that way because I know that it's specific to them.
That's awesome. Yes, so there's a lot of different ways that you are obviously using Buncee with Microsoft Teams. So I also want to touch a little bit on the login issue. So as you noticed, because it relates to one of the questions in the chat, so you were unable to log in. So for some instances, for some of the schools, you actually do have to get in touch with your, Teams administrator in some cases to also install the Buncee app. So depending on your school's privacies or your settings for your Teams organization, your school administrator might have to install the Buncee app, or you might be able to also install it yourself. And so that's just to answer that question. And then one last one that I wanted to highlight was a little bit related to your OneNote. So the question is, can you download the class OneNote that you were able to create there? Karina, you're muted. Yep.
Oh, okay. Hello?
Yes, you're good now.
Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Awesome. So I'll be very honest. I haven't had the need to download it, but what you can do is share a link to your section or your notebook to the other students. Now, the feature that I went over under collaborative space is is given access to all the students, or the students have access to that space without even needing to download. But if you wanted to share it, all you have to do is right click on the tab, and there will be an option for copy link to section, and you can share that with your students or anybody in your school organization.
All right. And so we have one last question that just came in before we bring this to a close, which is, how do I link Microsoft Teams with Buncee? So this is pretty broad as a question, so I'm going to frame this a little differently for our community here. So there's a lot of different ways that you can actually use Buncee with Microsoft Teams. So as Karina had showed earlier, depending on what you're looking to do, you can actually pull a Buncee URL directly and paste it into Teams as one example, or you could use that share to Teams feature, which is super duper powerful. I know I said super duper, but it's a really powerful feature because as you create your lesson or your activities, you can see the Teams icon when you plan to share it. So you create your lesson, you press share, and then you'll see a Teams icon that will allow you to actually post your Teams, or your Buncee rather, to your Teams class. So if you want to post it as an assignment or just as part of a conversation, you'll be able to do that. So there's actually a few different ways that you can link your Buncee into Microsoft Teams. So I hope that helps answer the question. And then just some final touches here. So there's a lot of different ways that you'll be able to leverage Microsoft Teams that Karina had been able to highlight. So we'll actually be passing these resources over via email as part of the attendance form. But before we bring this session to a close, I want to first of all, thank you, Karina, for, taking the time, especially in your early hours, to be able to share your experience with all of us. I'm honestly super appreciative of all that you've been able to share, and honestly, just your work in general. You are such an amazing educator, so I can't really thank you enough. And same with our audience. So thank you for tuning in. And so with that, I want to also highlight Fairuz, if you're able to join in, because we did have questions about how to access Buncee with Microsoft Teams with Delima. So I want to pass it over to you.
All right. Thank you. First of all, thank you, Karina. It's a wonderful sharing session. I love your examples, and we will be in touch. I think our teachers here have a lot of questions for you. Feel free to connect with Karina via Facebook, right? And also for Buncee questions, you can also ask Ida. First of all, before I get to that, I would like to say thank you to MOE, especially the Educational Resources and Technology Division, BSTP, for supporting this program. It's a collaboration between Microsoft and Buncee with the support of MOE. So thank you so much. And we also have teachers from MARA, from higher ed, and from public schools, private schools, and from worldwide. Thank you so much for joining. Today we have almost 200 participants today. And so to answer that question, Ida, for MOE teachers, you have access to your Delima portal with your Delima ID, which is the MOE-DL. So you would be able to log into Teams from the Delima portal, or you can straight away go to office.com or teams.microsoft.com and sign in using your Delima credentials. And you'll be able to do what Karina did just now from using your Delima ID. So I hope that answers your question. So is there anything else that you'd like me to address, Ida?
No, that's it. So what I can do, unless you have anything else you'd like to share, is I'll do my last screen share here just to be able to share the attendance form and the last final information. So I'll go ahead and share my screen for a moment here. But you should be able to see my screen. So like we mentioned earlier, so I'm going to just hide this for a second, but as you've been able to tune into this sort of week, we've been able to share a lot of different ideas and strategies. So now if you want to be able to dive into more detail on how to use specific features of Buncee or even Microsoft Teams, because we do cover this in our weekly training sessions, you'll be able to register on bit.ly/Buncee training, where we offer free weekly webinars and training opportunities for you to be able to dive in more deeply. But if you're interested to get connected with any of our community members, you can also follow us on social video or join us on any of our Facebook communities. And so again, thank you to Karina for tuning in or for sharing with us for this session. But tomorrow I want to also highlight that tomorrow one of our educators from Malaysia, Go, has been using Buncee as well in the classroom. So he'll actually be talking and focusing on all the different creative activities he's been implementing with his students, especially since he teaches in a remote setting. So if you have time or availability to tune in, I encourage you to join in. It's bit.ly/msbuncee128. And so again, it's the same time tomorrow. And then of course, before we come to an official close here, I want to share about our attendance form. So what you'll see on my screen right here is the attendance form for you to be able to sign. Once you sign this, you'll be able to receive your certificate, your special access code, as well as more information on that Buncee challenge that I had mentioned earlier in the session. And so be sure to sign it. It's bit.ly/msbuncee3. And so we'll be able to send you all of this information. Just be sure as a note to type your email in correctly, as if you don't type it in correctly, you won't be able to receive this information. So with that, I'll leave it on the screen for another second, but otherwise I will see you tomorrow for our next session. So thank you so much to everyone for tuning in, and really thank you again, Karina, for hosting us today. So with that, have a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow.